with a 5 and 10 cent store.
Make it work, Doc Goodman. Everything on his proper shelf, eh, Max? All done up in little ribbons. I could die right now and nobody'd be confused.
Smoking is a leading cause of many fatal diseases, but never mind that, because we are looking back at an era where smoking symbolized sophistication and glamour. Here are 20 biggest chain smokers in old Hollywood history.
That's it. Keep the candles up. Keep them way up high. Okay, Byron.
Number 20. Bing Crosby. As one of the most popular and influential entertainers of the 20th century, Bing Crosby is well known for his smooth voice and charismatic presence in both music and film. Bing Crosby's career spanned several decades, from the 1930s to the 1970s. He was a major star in radio, recording, film, and television. Known for his relaxed and smooth singing style, Crosby's influence on American music and entertainment was nothing short of profound. He recorded numerous hit songs, one of which is White Christmas, and it remains one of the best-selling singles of all time. Crosby also had a successful film career, starring in classics like Going My Way in 1944 and The Bells of St. Mary's in 1945. But somewhere in all of that, he had a lifelong habit of smoking, and as you will see, it had significant repercussions on his health and career. Crosby was a lifelong smoker. It was a habit he began quite early in his youth and continued throughout his life. At this point, it is important to note that smoking was a socially accepted and common habit at the time. For much of Crosby's career, it was the cool thing, and many of his contemporaries smoked as well. The unfortunate thing was how the health risks associated with smoking were not as widely recognized or publicized during those early years. Eventually, the consequences of Crosby's smoking habit became more apparent as he aged. While Crosby's voice remained largely intact for much of his career, smoking did cause significant damage to the vocal cords and respiratory system. As he aged, his ability to perform at the same level he had during his peak years declined. Crosby also suffered from a number of smoking-related health issues in his later years. In 1974, he underwent surgery to remove a portion of his lung due to a fungal infection that was exacerbated by his smoking habit. He also had a history of heart problems, and it all culminated in a fatal heart attack in 1977.
Right now and nobody'd be confused. How about you, Max?
How about me what?
Suppose you drop dead. What about your inventory?
Number 19, Bette Davis. Bette Davis was one of Hollywood's most iconic and talented actresses, and it isn't hard to see why. She had the distinctive voice, the striking appearance, and the commanding screen presence that a star needed at the time. Thanks to these factors, Bette Davis had a career that spanned over 6 decades. Her most memorable performances were in films like Jezebel in 1938, All About Eve in 1950, and Whatever Happened to Baby Jane in 1962. Sadly, she had a smoking habit that was not only well documented, but also became a notable aspect of her persona both on and off the screen. Davis's smoking habit was well documented and visible in her personal life and on screen. Davis frequently smoked in her film roles, and to be fair, it was very reflective of the era's cinematic trends. Character smoking on screen was common in mid-20th century films, and Davis had no problem reinforcing this image to the audience. In interviews and public appearances, Davis was often seen with a cigarette in hand. To further cement her image as a smoker in the public's mind, Davis herself openly acknowledged her smoking habit. She was known for her candidness and did not shy away from discussing her personal life, including her smoking. As you can imagine, the consequences became evident as she aged. Her voice slowly became deeper and raspier. In 1983, Davis was diagnosed with breast cancer and underwent a mastectomy. While breast cancer is not directly linked to smoking, Davis's overall health was compromised by her habit. She suffered a series of strokes in the late 1980s, and it left her with speech difficulties and physical impairments. Smoking is a risk factor for strokes, and her habit likely contributed to her deteriorating health.
What you're about to see, gentlemen, is a series called The Twilight Zone. We think it's a rather special kind of series.
Number 18, Rod Serling. Rod Serling was the creator and host of the iconic television series The Twilight Zone. But of course, having a spot on this list means that Serling is remembered not only for his profound contributions to television, but also for his well-documented smoking habit. Still, his impact cannot be denied. As a prolific writer and producer, his best works are no doubt The Twilight Zone and Night Gallery. The Twilight Zone in particular is still regarded as one of the greatest TV series of all time. Serling's distinctive presence, marked by his intense and thoughtful introductions to each episode, became a trademark of the show. But another trademark of his was the constant smoking. Serling often appeared on screen with a cigarette in hand even during his introductions on The Twilight Zone. While smoking was more socially acceptable during that era, you can understand how his constant on-screen smoking became a defining part of his public image. This image of the brooding, cigarette-smoking writer fit well with the dark, contemplative themes of The Twilight Zone. Even in unrelated interviews and other public appearances, Serling was still seen smoking. Perhaps it was more than just a bad habit. We mean the television industry, especially in the mid-20th century, was a high-pressure environment. Writing, producing, and hosting a groundbreaking show like The Twilight Zone involved significant stress. Sadly, cigarettes were often marketed as a cool and common way to manage stress. We know now that smoking is a major risk factor for cardiovascular diseases, but it wasn't popular knowledge then. At the end of the day, Serling suffered from coronary artery disease, which led to multiple heart attacks. In 1975, at the age of 50, he underwent open-heart surgery following a series of heart attacks. Unfortunately, he died from complications a couple of days after the surgery.
You don't smoke?
No,
Why do you want to start now?
I'm scared to death, that's why.
Number 17. John Cazale. Though it was a brief career, John Cazale made an impact in that little time. In 7 years, he appeared in only 5 feature films, with each one getting nominated for the Academy Award for Best Picture. His ability to portray deeply nuanced and vulnerable characters was always a recurring praise. These films in which he portrayed significant roles include The Godfather in 1972, The Godfather Part 2, and The Conversation in 1974, as well as The Deer Hunter in 1978. But of course, Cazale was just another movie star who was always seen smoking both on and off set. Colleagues and friends frequently mentioned his constant smoking in interviews and retrospectives. Numerous photographs and behind-the-scenes footage also show Cazale with a cigarette. All these solidify the image of him as a habitual smoker. But this was okay. We mean, smoking was a common habit in the entertainment industry during the 1960s and 1970s. The culture of the time and the high-stress environment of acting certainly contributed to Cazale's smoking habit. Unfortunately, this habit had serious consequences on his health and career. Smoking is a leading cause of lung cancer, and in 1977, Cazale was diagnosed with lung cancer. After his diagnosis, Cazale's health deteriorated quickly. Despite his illness, he continued to work on the movie titled The Deer Hunter. With the support of his co-stars and director, who adjusted the shooting schedule to accommodate his condition, Cazale played his part. Sadly, he passed away the following year at the age of 42. Cazale's career was tragically cut short just as he was reaching the peak of his potential. His performances in 5 of the most critically acclaimed films of the 1970s left audiences and critics wondering what more he could have achieved had he lived longer. Number 16. Sammy Davis Jr. Sammy Davis Jr. is a name synonymous with multi-talented entertainment. From singing to dancing and acting, he could really do it all. To begin with, Sammy Davis Jr. had a storied career that spanned several decades. In that time, he became an iconic figure known for his exceptional versatility and charismatic stage presence. He performed in numerous films, television shows, and live performances. While he is best known for his role in the Rat Pack, he is also widely recognized for the deadly habit of smoking. Davis was frequently seen smoking during public appearances, performances, and interviews. Davis often smoked on stage and in his film and television roles. Friends, colleagues, and subsequent biographers frequently mentioned Davis's smoking habit, smoking 3 to 4 cigarettes a day. As you can imagine, this was not without its consequences. In 1989, Davis was diagnosed with throat cancer. Smoking is a major risk factor for throat cancer, and his heavy smoking habit must have significantly contributed to this illness. Davis underwent surgery to remove part of his throat as a treatment for his cancer. Unfortunately, the surgery affected his ability to speak and sing, thus impacting his career and personal life. A great price to pay, wouldn't you say? His cancer diagnosis and subsequent treatment significantly deteriorated his health condition. The smoking habit and the subsequent health issues had several consequences on his professional life. The changes in his voice and his health issues affected his ability to perform. The illness also led to periods of absence from his career. His death in May of 1990, at the age of 64, marked the end of a brilliant career and deprived the entertainment world of his talent and charisma. While his legacy as an extraordinary entertainer remains strong, His smoking habit serves as a cautionary tale about the long-term health risks associated with tobacco use. Number 15, Buster Keaton. Due to his work as a comedian, actor, and director, Buster Keaton is regarded as one of the most influential figures in early cinema. Buster Keaton's career began in vaudeville before making the transition to silent films. He then became famous for his physical comedy, stone-faced expression, and innovative filmmaking techniques. When we say stone-faced, we mean it literally. Keaton's nickname was the Great Stone Face because he never smiled on camera. When asked in a 1960 interview, Keaton remarked, "Not smiling was mechanical with me." You would find him in films like The General in 1926, Sherlock Jr. in 1924, and Steamboat Bill Jr. in 1928. These roles cemented his legacy as a comedic genius and cinematic pioneer. But as evident as his talent was, there was still the loud perception of him as a chain smoker. This reputation has been well documented and is often discussed in biographies and retrospectives. When he wasn't smoking on set, he was most definitely smoking in other public and private settings. Keaton was often seen smoking during interviews, social events, and other public appearances. Numerous photographs and film footage show him with a cigarette, reinforcing his image as a habitual smoker. With such visibility, it isn't hard to imagine how this perception of him was formed. Keaton was diagnosed with lung cancer sometime in the late 1950s. You already know that smoking is a major risk factor for lung cancer, so it is safe to say that his heavy smoking habit significantly contributed to the development of the disease. Keaton's overall health deteriorated due to his smoking. He faced various health issues, but most prominent of all was the respiratory problems. Combined, these problems affected not just his ability to work, but also his quality of life. Buster Keaton passed away on February 1st, 1966. He was 70 and died from the complications of lung cancer. While Keaton's talent and legacy remained largely intact, his visible smoking habit became an undeniable part of his public image. If anything, this actually reflects the broader cultural acceptance of smoking during his time. And of course, his struggle with lung cancer and his eventual death underscore the severe impact smoking can have on health and career longevity. Number 14, William Tallman. Best known for his role as the District Attorney Hamilton Berger on the television series Perry Mason, William Tallman is often remembered as a chain smoker. William Tallman's portrayal of Hamilton Berger on Perry Mason from 1957 to 1966 made him a familiar face to television audiences. His career included various roles in film, television, and theater, but his role in Perry Mason no doubt stands out as his most iconic. But like most actors of the time, Tallman was frequently seen smoking both on and off set. His friends, colleagues, and later biographers all mention Tallman's smoking habit. Put together, all these accounts provide detailed descriptions of his constant smoking, which was a prominent aspect of his daily life. Sadly, just as his smoking habit was widely recognized, it would have had significant consequences on his health and life. In a notable public service announcement filmed shortly before his death, Tallman spoke out against smoking. His participation in this PSA, where he acknowledged his smoking habit and its consequences, made his smoking more widely known to the public. You see, Tallman was diagnosed with lung cancer in 1967. After his diagnosis, Tallman's health deteriorated quickly. Despite his illness, he continued to work and made public appearances, including the PSA warning others about the dangers of smoking. William Tallman passed away on August 30th, 1968, at the age of 53 due to the complications from lung cancer. He left behind a story that serves as both a celebration of his artistic achievements and a cautionary tale about the impact of smoking on health and career.
He's not worth the trouble. Does a snake know he's a snake? He crawls on his stomach and he thinks he's a king, right?
Right.
Number 13, Audrey Meadows. Audrey Meadows had a successful career in television, film, and theater. Best known for her talent and humor, her most iconic role was as Alice Cramden, the sharp-tongued yet loving wife of Ralph Cramden on The Honeymooners. Before The Honeymooners became a standalone show, it was part of the Jackie Gleason Show. Then, from 1982 to 1986, Meadows played the recurring role of Iris Martin, which added her comedic talent to this popular sitcom, Too Close for Comfort. Moving on to films, she starred in That Touch of Mink in 1962 and Take Her, She's Mine in 1963. Still, her most iconic role ever was that of the wife of bus driver Ralph Cramden. Her portrayal of Alice, a wise and loving but no-nonsense wife, became a defining part of American television history. While the show remains a classic, her performance is still celebrated for its wit and depth. Interestingly, she won an Emmy Award for Best Supporting Actress in 1954 for her role on The Jackie Gleason Show, which included the Honeymooners sketches. This role made her a household name and a beloved figure in American television history. Sadly, she rose to fame at a time when smoking was the coolest thing one could do, and it wasn't without consequences. Her health deteriorated greatly as she aged. When it wasn't respiratory problems, other health issues related to smoking popped up and affected her quality of life and ability to work. To top it all off, Meadows was diagnosed with lung cancer. She died at 73 due to complications from lung cancer in 1996. Next, a close colleague of hers.
He is great. Geez, that old fat man. Look at the way he moves, like a dancer.
Number 12, Jackie Gleason. Much like Audrey Meadows, Jackie Gleason was an iconic figure in American entertainment, still remembered for his contributions to television, film, and comedy. For Gleason, it all began in vaudeville and nightclubs, where he honed his comedic skills. As you will see, this early work laid the foundation for his later success in television and film. From 1955 to 1956, he starred in The Honeymooners, where he played the role of Ralph Cramden, a quick-tempered but lovable bus driver. This character became one of the most iconic characters of that time. The show remains a classic, and his performance is still particularly celebrated for its humor and depth. Even before this, Gleason performed as the host of The Jackie Gleason Show from 1952 down to 1970. From the featured comedy sketches to the musical performances and dance numbers, this variety show showcased Gleason's versatility as a performer. The show was not only a major success, but also cemented Gleason's status as an icon. You would also find him in films like 1961's The Hustler. Gleason's performance as the suave pool player Minnesota Fats earned him an Academy Award nomination for Best Supporting Actor. However, his career and life were significantly impacted by his chain-smoking habit. Gleason was known to always have a cigarette on hand. He often smoked during rehearsals, performances, and even while filming. We mean it was a very visible part of his public persona. Gleason's heavy smoking habit had severe health consequences. He suffered from various smoking-related illnesses, including heart disease and respiratory issues. His weight and sedentary lifestyle further exacerbated these problems. Gleason experienced multiple heart attacks. These health scares affected his ability to work and led to periods of absence from his career. In his later years, Gleason was diagnosed with colon cancer. Smoking is a major risk factor for many types of cancer, and his habit likely contributed to these diagnoses. Jackie Gleason passed away on June 24, 1987, at the age of 71, due to complications from cancer. His death marked the end of a legendary career, but highlighted the severe impact of his smoking habit. Number 11, Nat King Cole. From the smooth voice to the exceptional piano skills and charismatic stage presence, there is no denying that Nat King Cole is one of the most influential figures in American music. Nat King Cole began his career as a jazz pianist in the late 1930s as part of the King Cole Trio. His innovative style and exceptional piano skills quickly garnered attention in the jazz world. Cole then transitioned to singing in the 1940s, and his smooth baritone voice became his signature. He achieved widespread popularity with hits like Straighten Up and Fly Right and the Christmas Song. Then came Nature Boy in 1948. This song reached number 1 on the Billboard charts. Unforgettable followed in 1951, and it quickly became one of Cole's most iconic recordings and remains a classic to this day. In 1956, Cole made history as the first African American to host a nationally televised variety show. Despite its short run, the show was groundbreaking and highlighted Cole's talent and charisma. Cole was married twice. His first marriage to Nadine Robinson ended in divorce. He then married Maria Hawkins Ellington in 1948, with whom he had 5 children, including Natalie Cole, who would go on to have her own successful music career. Cole worked with numerous prominent musicians and arrangers throughout his career, including Nelson Riddle and Billy May. Cole's impact on other musicians was profound. He paved the way for future African-American artists in both music and television, breaking down racial barriers and setting new standards of excellence. Nat King Cole was a known chain smoker, often seen with a cigarette in hand both on and off stage. His smoking was a visible part of his public persona. Maybe it was the high-stress environment of show business or the cultural acceptance of smoking. Whatever it was, Cole had a habit of smoking constantly. Like so many others on this list, Cole was diagnosed with lung cancer. After his diagnosis in 1964, Cole's health deteriorated rapidly. Despite undergoing surgery to remove a lung, his condition worsened, and he continued to suffer from the effects of the disease. Nat King Cole passed away on February 15, 1965, at the age of 45, due to complications from lung cancer. As a pioneering African-American artist, Cole broke down racial barriers and achieved significant success in a segregated society. Sadly, his early death underscored the severe impact of his smoking habit. Number 10, Lana Turner. It goes without saying that Lana Turner was one of Hollywood's most glamorous and enduring stars. She had the beauty, acting talent, and quite frankly, the tumultuous personal life that made for a show. Julia Jean Lana Turner was famously discovered at the age of 16 while sipping a soda at a Hollywood malt shop. Her beauty quickly caught the attention of talent scouts, leading to a contract with MGM. Her role in the 1937 film They Won't Forget catapulted her to fame as she became a symbol of Hollywood glamour and sex appeal. Turner's beauty and screen presence influenced many young actresses who followed in her footsteps. She was often cited as a style icon and a symbol of Hollywood glamour. Turner worked with many notable directors and actors throughout her career. Her collaborations with directors like Vincent Minnelli and Douglas Sirk resulted in some of her most acclaimed performances. Her major successes included The Postman Always Rings Twice in 1946, Peyton Place in 1957, as well as Imitation of Life in 1959. Turner was married 8 times to 7 different men. One of the most notorious incidents in Turner's life was the killing of her lover, Johnny Stompanato, by her daughter Cheryl Crane in 1958. The incident was ruled as justifiable homicide and was just one of the many proofs of her tumultuous romantic life. The fact that these relationships were frequently in the public eye contributed to her image as a Hollywood diva. Another image she couldn't escape was the label of a chain smoker. Lana Turner was often seen with a cigarette both on and off set. Smoking was part of her public persona, and she frequently smoked in her films. Turner's smoking habit had significant health consequences. In her later years, she was diagnosed with throat cancer, a case which is strongly linked to smoking. She died at the age of 74 from complications of the terminal illness. Number 9, Jerry Lewis. This is definitely a name that rings loud in the world of American comedy and entertainment. Jerry Lewis had a career marked by significant achievements in film, television, and philanthropy. He was known for his slapstick humor, innovative contributions to the industry, and of course, a well-documented smoking habit. But before we delve into that, let's take a moment to appreciate his early career and rise to fame. From 1946 to 1956, Jerry Lewis teamed up with singer Dean Martin to form one of the most successful comedy duos in entertainment history. The duo's chemistry was made even better by their contrasting styles. Lewis's was more slapstick, while Martin had a suave demeanor. Combined, they became immensely popular. Their partnership included performances in nightclubs, radio, television, and films like At War with the Army in 1950 and The Caddy in 1953. He also had an enviable solo career, too. His directorial debut in 1960's The Bellboy showcased his innovative use of visual gags and physical comedy. He wrote, directed, and starred in the film, setting the tone for his future projects like The Nutty Professor in 1963. Lewis frequently appeared on television, hosting and starring in specials and making guest appearances on various shows. His energetic style and comedic talent made him a beloved figure on the small screen. Lewis also took his talents to the stage, notably starring in the Broadway production of Damn Yankees in the mid-1990s. We can't also forget his humanitarian work, particularly his association with the MDA, or Muscular Dystrophy Association. He hosted the annual Labor Day telethon for decades and raised billions of dollars for muscular dystrophy research and patient care. His dedication to the cause earned him numerous awards and accolades, including the Jean Hersholt Humanitarian Award from the Academy of Motion Picture Arts and Sciences in 2009. All these awareness for other issues, but somehow Jerry Lewis remained a chain smoker. In fact, smoking was a visible part of his public persona. Lewis's smoking habit did have significant health consequences. He suffered from chronic obstructive pulmonary disease, or COPD, and other respiratory issues. Smoking also contributed to his heart disease, which led to multiple surgeries and hospitalizations.
My wound
But I wish, if only for a few minutes, to be a woman.
What is there to stop you?
Number 8. Amanda Blake. Best known for her 19-year stint as the salon keeper Miss Kitty Russell on the television series Gunsmoke, Amanda Blake had a successful career in film and television. Amanda Blake began her acting career in the late 1940s, appearing in films such as Stars in My Crown in 1950 and Cattletown in 1952. Her early roles showcased so much talent and versatility that it opened her up to more prominent parts in both film and television. Blake's portrayal of the tough yet compassionate saloon owner Miss Kitty Russell in Gunsmoke became her most iconic role. She appeared in 19 of the show's 20 seasons and became a beloved character in the process. Gunsmoke was one of the longest-running TV shows in history, and Blake's performance was integral to its success. Her character became a cultural icon, representing a strong and independent woman. After leaving Gunsmoke in 1974, Blake continued to appear on television, guest starring in shows like The Love Boat and Heart to Heart. She also reprised her role as Miss Kitty in several Gunsmoke reunion movies. Blake was an avid animal rights advocate. She co-founded the Arizona Animal Welfare League and was active in animal conservation efforts, particularly for big cats. Unfortunately, she had a smoking habit that led to severe health consequences. She developed oral cancer in the 1970s, which she publicly attributed to her smoking habit. Despite undergoing surgery and treatment, her health continued to decline. By 1989, she died from complications from AIDS at the age of 60.
I'm sorry, Your Highness. I'm sorry he saw you.
You did it deliberately.
Number 7. Lucille Ball. One of the most influential figures in the history of television, Lucille Ball had a storied career that spans several decades. There is no doubt that Lucille Ball was a trailblazer for women in television, both in front of and behind the camera. She was best known for her groundbreaking work on I Love Lucy, a show still regarded as one of the most beloved sitcoms of all time. Before that, she began her career as a model. It wasn't until the 1930s that she transitioned to film. She appeared in numerous films and would often take up the supporting roles. In time, she became known as the Queen of the B's due to her frequent appearances in B movies. Her work with RKO Pictures in the 1940s included roles in films like The Big Street and Do Barry Was a Lady. By 1950s, it was a whole new ballgame. From 1951 to 1957, she starred as Lucy Ricardo in I Love Lucy. This sitcom revolutionized television comedy with its innovative use of 3 cameras and live audience filming. Before long, Ball's portrayal of the zany and lovable Lucy Ricardo became iconic. As you can imagine, the show's success catapulted Ball to superstardom and established her as a pioneering figure in television. Lucille Ball received numerous awards throughout her career, including 4 Emmys, the Golden Globe Cecil B. DeMille Award, and the Kennedy Center Honors. But somewhere in all of this, Lucille Ball was a well-known chain smoker. Whether on or off the set, Lucille Ball was often seen with a cigarette in hand. Ball's smoking habit had significant health consequences. She developed chronic obstructive pulmonary disease, or COPD, which affected her health in her later years. Smoking also likely contributed to her heart disease. Lucille Ball passed away in 1989 at the age of 77 due to a ruptured aorta. Her long-term smoking habit and its associated health risks may have played a role in her overall health decline.
Where's mine? They're small. Why don't you have 2? Okay.
Number 6. Mo Howard. Born Moses Harry Horwitz, Mo Howard was best known as the leader of the comedy trio The Three Stooges. In his peak years, he was widely perceived as a chain smoker. As you will see, this perception was rooted in several aspects of his personal habits, public appearances, and the broader cultural context of his time. Mo Howard was always seen smoking. His habit was well known among colleagues, friends, and family. He was often photographed with a cigarette in hand, both in casual settings and during public appearances. This visibility was bound to solidify the public's association of him with smoking. Mo Howard's career spanned a time when smoking was prevalent and socially acceptable. Stars like Howard surely went out of their way to glamorize smoking in the media. The widespread advertising of cigarettes and their prominent use in films and television shows of the era normalized smoking. Howard, like many of his contemporaries, must have adopted smoking as part of the cultural norm. Like many heavy smokers, Mo Howard experienced health issues related to his smoking habit, and he suffered from lung problems later in life. Observers would also tell you that there was a significant decline in Howard's physical stamina and performance in his later years. Unfortunately, He died of lung cancer at the age of 77.
Scarlett, I've been thinking things over, and I really believe it would be better for both of us if we admitted we'd made a mistake and got a divorce.
A divorce?
Yeah. There's no point in our holding on to each other.
Number 5, Clark Gable. It goes without saying that Clark Gable was one of the most iconic American actors during Hollywood's golden age. In fact, he was famously known as the King of Hollywood. We are not sure it gets any more iconic than that. He achieved legendary status through his stellar performance as Rhett Butler in the 1939 classic Gone with the Wind. But Gable's life wasn't confined to the silver screen. By 1942, Gable was at the peak of his fame when he made the surprising choice to join the United States Air Force. As a captain, he led a 6-man team that trained and flew with the 351st Heavy Bomb Group. For his service, Gable was awarded the Distinguished Aviation Medal and the Distinguished Flying Cross. As the story goes, he even caught the attention of Adolf Hitler. After his military service, Gable was promoted to major, leaving behind a legacy of bravery. Gable was an all-around solid guy. Unfortunately, he had a habit of smoking without end. If the reports are to be believed, then Gable had a long-standing habit of consuming 3 packs of unfiltered cigarettes, cigars, and pipe tobacco daily, and he did this for over 30 years. His health was ravaged by years of smoking and drinking. This addiction led to severe health problems, including a surgery to remove most of his left lung. Sadly, Gable passed away in Los Angeles after his 4th heart attack in November 1960. Number 4, Johnny Carson. Johnny Carson was the famous host of The Tonight Show. He began this hosting gig in 1962 and went on to hold the position for 30 years. He was widely loved for his cheerful and engaging persona. Another huge aspect of that persona was his heavy smoking habit. Throughout his tenure on the show, he often used cigarettes as props on air, a practice that was now diminishing as societal attitudes towards smoking had shifted. In a 1979 interview with Mike Wallace on 60 Minutes, Carson opened up about his smoking addiction. Many were actually surprised by the extent of his dependency after hearing his candid remarks. While he did express regret over his compulsive smoking, he humorously mentioned that only drastic measures like electric shock treatment could help him quit. If you've made it this far, do hit the subscribe button and turn on the notification bell so you don't miss any updates from us. Up next, an actor who actually made smoking look cool in his movies. Number 3, Humphrey Bogart. Bogart will forever be remembered as a heartthrob of Hollywood's golden age. He was talented, dashing, and had the charisma to bolster his career. But he often smoked in his film roles. His characters frequently used cigarettes as a prop, which not only reinforced his cool, tough guy image, but also mirrored his real-life habit. This repeated on-screen behavior contributed to the public perception of him as a heavy smoker. You might be surprised to learn that Bogart's on-screen association with cigarettes had an interesting origin. You see, early cinema scripts were often filled with long monologues and minimal physical action. As the story goes, Bogart was getting frustrated at how boring a scene he was shooting was. In fact, he even famously joked that the scene would only be interesting if 2 camels did something outrageous in the background. The director initially dismissed the joke, but eventually had the idea that Bogart could smoke during the scene instead. This action gave Bogart a way to break the monotony of the monologue and enhance his performance. Another thing they noticed was how the act of smoking drew the audience's attention to his face. Each puff seemingly kept them more engaged. Going forward, Bogart began smoking in nearly every film. Bogart's association with cigarettes became a significant part of his public persona, as it created a strong connection between his cool, detached characters and cigarettes. His roles in classic films such as Casablanca and The Maltese Falcon all featured him smoking. You can see how this solidified the image of Bogart and a cigarette in the public's mind. His image became so tied to smoking that cigarettes were sometimes called bogies. Tragically, his smoking habit not only led many to intimate him but also contributed to his early death. Bogart delayed seeking medical help for his persistent cough and other health issues until 1956, when he was diagnosed with esophageal cancer. This diagnosis marked the end of his remarkable career, brought down by the very habit he had made synonymous with coolness. Number 2, Jackie Kennedy. She might not have been a Hollywood star, but Jackie Kennedy is a worthy mention because she was just as glamorous as one. Famous for her fashion sense and cherished as a first lady, she is one person who had a surprising and lesser-known trait of chain smoking. You see, despite her elegant and poised appearance, Kennedy smoked 3 packs of cigarettes daily for over 4 decades. She was even rumored to smoke while pregnant until the doctor strongly advised against it. But because very few photographs ever caught this side of her, it is generally hard to picture her as a smoker. The absence of such photos do not discredit the rumors, though. If anything, we believe it truly highlights her influence as a first lady. She definitely had the power to ensure she was not photographed smoking, and by doing so, kept her smoking habit out of the public eye.
You will be my wife. You will come to me whenever I call you. And I will enjoy that very much. Whether you enjoy it or not is your own affair.
Number 1. Yol Briner. Another star who fell victim to constant smoking is Yol Briner. Before his death, Briner was known for his commanding presence on both the silver screen and Broadway stage. You might know him from one of his countless performances as King Moncut in The King and I. We mean he played the role well over 4,000 times and even received an Academy Award for Best Actor for the 1956 film adaptation. But he had a not-so-hidden vice. Briner was said to smoke an astonishing 5 packs of cigarettes daily. This was until September 1983, when he suffered a sore throat. His voice had changed so much that he sought professional help. The doctors had found a lump on his vocal cords, and he was hours away from a King and I performance when he received the test results of an inoperable lung cancer. Sadly, his habit of smoking eventually led to his death from lung cancer. Before he passed away, he took on the poignant task of creating a commercial for the American Cancer Society. In the haunting ad, his voice, now weak and raspy, implored viewers to not follow his example. He revealed that the ad would be broadcast after his death, emphasizing the urgency of his message. With piercing eyes and a chilling tone, Briner stated, "Now that I'm gone, don't smoke. Whatever you do, just don't smoke." The advertisement was both frightening and impactful, showing Briner's transformation from a picture of health to a shadow of his former self, consumed by lung cancer. His addiction was largely to blame for this tragic decline, and his case continues to serve as a stark warning about the dangers of smoking. So, what do you think? Do share your thoughts in the comments. If you enjoyed this video, don't forget to hit the like button. You also can't miss the next video on screen.